Fighting crime with a bulldozer. The president getting plenty of attention for his State of the Union address, but what about Sam Brownback as he delivers the Kansas State of the State on the same night? The Chiefs are still the big news story and now the only NFL team in Missouri. What does the hubbub in St. Louis mean for KC? And tracking the unhealthiest neighborhood in the metro. Welcome, everyone. Glad you're here. I'm Nick Haynes, tracking these stories and some of the rest of the week's news from the editorial pages of your Kansas City Star, Barbara Shelley, Star reporter, columnist and blogger Dave Helling, the senior writer for the Call newspaper, Eric Wesson, and from The Pitch, reporter Steve Vokrot. Now, last week we discussed the big jump in homicides in Kansas City, 109 last year, and 8 murders in the first 10 days of this year. This week, an unorthodox solution for tackling the crime wave, a bulldozer. Police Chief Darrell Forte telling a meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners he would support diverting money from his own budget for hiring more police officers and putting that cash to demolishing abandoned buildings in the most crime-ridden parts of East Kansas City. But how feasible is that, and how effective would that strategy really be, Eric Wesson?
Well, he's going along with the broken window theory. A lot of those buildings, a lot of crime takes place in those neighborhoods. The blight, people feel like nobody cares about it, so you might have a lot of homicides in those areas. But I guess the only way we would know is if it would be successful, if it would actually happen. I don't think that that's really the solution. But that's him, and he's the chief of police. He has more access to data than I do. But I think we've got to deal with some other issues that are taking place.
You know, is there anyone who could say, well, if we demolished 100 homes in these crime hotspots, or that's actually worth more than hiring one additional police officer, Barbara?
I don't think anybody knows that for sure, and there's a lot of different opinions on this. And, for one thing, there's, one school of thought that says it's actually more cost-effective to rehab some of these structures than to tear them down and, do maintenance on the lots forever and ever on vacant lots. There's talk that the police department needs a staffing survey to see if it's using its resources properly. There's a lot of people that think there's not enough cops on the street, but whether that's actually a shortage of people or an allocation issue is controversial.
Now, rather than getting a pat on the back, the mayor, Sly James, says, I thought the police chief was joking. He thought it was an offhanded comment and that he didn't know he was actually serious about this proposal.
Right, and I think the chief is serious, and at one time the mayor was mentioning this very issue as one of his priorities to demolish vacant and dangerous buildings. And so Forte's suggestion is kind of an extension of what the mayor had pledged to do some years ago and hasn't been done in any meaningful way. The city is going to say in this instance, well, we don't have the money, which is going to bring again, as it always does, and budget time is starting up again for the city here very soon, about what are we choosing to spend our money on. On one hand, there's this request for $18 million for 18th and Vine. There's money being requested all over the city. And when is this essential project? Buildings that are dangerous, when are they going to get knocked down? They should be getting knocked down anyway, whether it's tied to crime or not.
So $10 million is what the city manager says it would cost to demolish all of these dangerous buildings in Kansas City currently. As Steve Vokrot points out, there's a recent request for $18 million for the 18th and Vine Jazz District. Is there enough money for both? What is the trade-offs and consequences?
Well, yeah, I mean, you could find $10 million in the budget to tear down homes. Keep this in mind, Nick. By the way, as you know, I've talked about this issue on this show for a decade because I think it's an important conversation for Kansas City to have. But keep in mind, it's very expensive to tear down a house. Just one house is $8,000 or $9,000 to tear it down. And so the bill adds up very quickly, and it would take an enormous amount of money to sort of solve the problem rather than do what Kansas City typically does, which is tear down a couple of hundred a year and never really catch up. The other thing, though, that the chief has not addressed, nor has the city manager, is what do you do once you've torn the home down? I mean, now you have a vacant lot that you have to maintain, cut the grass, keep the weeds out, watch for, dangerous vermin, that type of thing. And you've left a hole in a neighborhood. You might have one home with 3 vacant lots next door. And you don't hear anybody talk about what happens next. Do you build new homes? Do you give the lots away? Do you give it to the next door neighbor? I've said for years, Kansas City ought to study this problem, focus on it, and come up with a comprehensive idea of what to do to revitalize neighborhoods. And by the way, not just homes, but strip shopping centers, old gas stations. They're all over the east side. And until that happens, it's unlikely you're going to really solve that problem.
I think one of the things with demolishing the homes is it clears the landscape. And police, when they're in hotspot areas, they don't have to chase people in between houses and behind houses. The buildings being gone gives them a clear vision of what's going on in the neighborhood. As far as doing things with it, community gardens could be done with it because you've got the land there, and community gardens are starting to catch on very well in the urban core.
Well, you can share your voice on this issue and crime in Kansas City next Tuesday night when KCPT takes out its cameras for the Crime Caucus at the Paseo Academy. The event starts at 6. And just to give us a sense of numbers, we'd appreciate your RSVP. You can click the Crime Caucus button on our website, kcpt.org. Now, the president getting lots of attention this week as he delivers his State of the Union address. But on the same night, halfway across the country, Sam Brownback was delivering his State of the State speech in Topeka. The Kansas governor spending a good portion of that address decrying the president for his plans to close Guantanamo Bay and welcome thousands of Syrian refugees.
President Obama has chosen to pursue a path that puts Americans at risk. Mr. President, this will not work. The Lieutenant Governor, the Attorney General, and I each stand at the ready to thwart every action the President takes to transfer terrorists to Kansas.
Also in his speech, Governor Brownback touting successes he says failed to make the headlines.
K-12 spending is at an all-time high. More than half the people who were on welfare are now off it. And more importantly, they're getting out of poverty.
Okay, just some snapshots there from the governor's speech this week in Topeka. The biggest take-home for you from the speech, Barbara Shelley?
Nick, there's barely a week that goes by when we don't hear about another service that's failing in Kansas. Just this week, the director of the KBI said he couldn't investigate 20% of the felony cases brought to his department for a manpower shortage. And for Governor Brownback to spend as much time as he did talking about President Obama's policy on refugees, I think was just a very poor attempt to dupe the public about what's really going on in Kansas.
Steve Okra.
Well, I think, one thing that it was made pretty clear, he said that KanCare, which is his privatization of the Medicaid in Kansas, he said it's working, and he said Obamacare is not working. And to me, that was a signal, and I'll be writing about this a bit more in the next week or two. The notion of expanding Medicaid in Kansas has taken some hold among some Republicans who see it as a more effective way of administering Medicaid and providing a little bit of relief on the budget side. And I think Brownback took some time to focus on that to really kind of try and squash any discussion of expanding Medicaid in Kansas.
You've been writing about that too, Barbara.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think he has any intention of allowing a Medicaid expansion in Kansas.
Eric.
One of the things that I found interesting was the relationship between people on welfare and how those numbers are down, but how many people don't have jobs and they're just not in the reporting aspect, and how many of those people have moved to Missouri, where even though the welfare ranks are a lot more strict, but they're still a little more liberal than they are in Kansas. So I think explaining some of those things as what's the reality of what's going on in Kansas, I think he missed that totally.
The biggest take home for you, Dave?
Well, Governor Sam Brownback is deeply unpopular in Kansas. You can't talk to a single Republican or Democrat who's seen polling information and doesn't understand that he is really disliked in the state. And the go-to strategy when you are disliked that badly is to criticize Barack Obama. I mean, bring in Barack Obama, and that's how you sort of fight that, and you saw evidence of that in the speech. To me, that was an indicator of what we're going to see in the primaries this fall, where conservative Republicans are going to send out postcards with their opponents and Barack Obama on the same page, and they'll try again to nationalize the election. Medicaid is part of that, by the way, as a way to sort of scare voters into not looking at more direct questions in the state like school financing, mental health, crime investigation, highways. I mean, you just go down the list. The to-do agenda for the state of Kansas is huge. If you can distract voters from that, you may succeed, and this was the opening shot of that.
You know, some critics were complaining that the governor never mentioned his budget or the tax cutting at all in the speech. But isn't it the case, though, that any public official, even the president, is not going to be mentioning any of his weaknesses during that period of time?
But the president's budget is kind of balanced. I know my gas my gas is cheaper, so I'm saving money at the gas pump. And so to me, everything else falls in line.
Yeah,
but to go back to what Dave said, if people in Kansas know this, why did they reelect him? That's the puzzling part to me.
Because
Why did they
elections,
reelect him?
statewide elections, are much more now about national issues than they are about the specifics of local or state concerns.
Wow.
And Paul Davis, the Democratic nominee, suffered from his affiliation with Barack Obama. When a lot of Kansans go to the polls, and by the way, Pat Roberts was also on that ballot, that played into it a little bit as well. You know, the strategy when Republicans are doing poorly is to link their opponents with Barack Obama. It's happening in Missouri, by the way. Russ Carnahan is announcing for lieutenant governor as we speak. The first release from the Republican Party, oh, he's voted with Barack Obama and he's Barack Obama's friend. Nationalized elections tend to go for Republicans in Midwestern states like Missouri and Kansas, and we're seeing more evidence of that.
Well, I just say, Nick, people in Kansas are saying, what is the plan? You know, it's okay for Governor Brownback to totally ignore the fact that this is a structural problem in the budget that's not going to get better unless they do something dramatic, and he completely ignores it. And I think that frustrates a lot of people. They want some leadership from him instead of this just serene, everything's great around here.
The Kansas City Chiefs are one of the biggest stories of the week, and it's not just because they continue their Super Bowl quest Saturday against the Patriots. The Chiefs are now the only NFL team in the entire state of Missouri. The Rams are now officially leaving St. Louis, the NFL approving plans to move the St. Louis team to L.A. for the fall 2016 season. No NFL franchise has moved in nearly 20 years. The last time was in 1997 when the Houston Oilers went to Tennessee.
It's just depressing to see a team that I loved and just poured all my Sundays into for years just leave.
Okay, Steve Vockra, what does this hubbub in St. Louis mean for Kansas City, if anything?
Well, it doesn't mean much immediately. You know, there's a little bit of schadenfreude about in Kansas City towards St. Louis, as there often is when one city or the other suffers some kind of misfortune. And I would caution in Kansas City, I mean, in any city with an NFL team or any professional franchise, that the sort of thing that happened in St. Louis could happen in their city. The leases are going to be coming up for the Chiefs and the Royals here in 2031, I believe. And
which isn't that far away, actually.
Yeah, and I think in about 10 years, you're going to start hearing some of these same discussions.
Did you see the amount of money that this Kroenke is putting into his new stadium? $1.8 billion. If that's the new NFL standard for stadiums, there's just not that much money around here to do that.
Eric.
But St. Louis is a baseball town anyway, but the thing that got me about it was taxpayers are still on the hook for the renovations to the Dome Stadium that they have there now. So with no football team there, it's going to be like Kemper Arena. You watch what I tell you.
You know, striking to me,
years.
Dave Helling, was that the mayor of St. Louis, Francis Slay, said in the 15 years that he'd been mayor, that he had never once met with Stan Kroenke, the owner of the Rams.
Right, and one of the things we can take from that, Nick, is that these situations are almost always related in some way to the desires of the team owners. I mean, we have benefited in some ways that the Hunt family, Lamar Hunt, now Clark Hunt, and to even a certain degree, as vilified as he once was, David Glass, has agreed to improvements to the local complex that were affordable and relatively reasonable. If either owner chose to be unreasonable, Kansas City would have been in the same boat as St. Louis. And Stan Kroenke was quite unreasonable in asking, in essence, for the state of Missouri and the city of St. Louis to spend $1 billion on a new stadium. But Steve makes an extraordinarily important point. Our day is coming. And the idea that we can continually improve Arrowhead or improve Kauffman Stadium to satisfy the next owners, whoever they might be, is really a dicey proposition if you think professional athletics is important. Some people will say, no, we've got other things to worry about, let's not do it. But Imagine what a stadium's going to cost in 2031, a new stadium. $2.5–3 billion. Who has that kind of money, even financed over 30 years?
Better set up that GoFundMe account
yes,
now.
You better start now. And here's an important thing, and I tried to write this in a column this week. Sports franchises are kind of iffy because not everybody thinks they're important. So you have better build up public support for whatever you're going to do years ahead of need. And that process ought to start now. You know, we need to start planning for a new Truman Sports Complex in 20 years. This is how we might fund it. This is what we'll expect, instead of waiting, as St. Louis did, until the last minute and then shrugging their shoulders when things went downhill.
But in 15 years, we'll still be paying for the renovations to the stadium that they
15 years, someone else will be talking about this issue on this show.
The next superintendent of the Kansas City, Missouri School District will be one of these two men.
Kansas City Public Schools, to me, is an ideal fit for the skill set, experiences, and wisdom that I've gained throughout my career.
If we be able to come here and give some hope, to inspire kids, to let them know that I lived through the exact things that they're experiencing right now.
Since Superintendent Steve Green left for Atlanta in June, the Kansas City, Missouri School District has been searching for a new leader. Will it be Ronald Taylor, the current head of Willingboro Township Schools in New Jersey, a suburban district just outside of Philadelphia, or Mark Bedell, an assistant superintendent in the mammoth 110,000-student Baltimore County School District in Maryland? Eric, how are we to size up these two men?
Ronald Taylor, and looking at their resumes, it's a small school district, about 4,000, 5,000 students. What interests me was the Great City School scores, where the district that he is the superintendent of rates 2 out of 10, and that's not very good. The other gentleman, at least I can say that in his school district that he's at, even though he's an assistant, the SAT testing participation among young black males has increased since he's been there. So between the two, even though he hadn't been a superintendent before, I think the edge would go toward him. A lot of people think that he's the type of superintendent that would have his kids in the school district.
You know, I looked and watched both of their speeches before the audience this week at the Paseo Auditorium, and it seemed to me that these are two very young, very intelligent, ambitious professionals. Would they even stay in town very long?
Well, that's a key question, and people really want somebody who's going to stay for a while and get some things done. And, you know, I think the school board knows that and probably will, you know, make that maybe their main point of consideration when they make the decision.
What is at stake in this, Steve?
Well, I think to kind of follow up on Barb's point is some continuity in leadership, as we know. I mean, one of the ongoing legacies and the problems with the school district is the revolving door of superintendents, and we went through times where the school board got involved to a point where people left or were fired, and with Steve Green he saw a better opportunity. So keeping somebody who might have some longevity is really part of what's at stake.
But even though Steve Green had the consistency there, we just saw where his consistency really lasted a year with the test scores, and then the next year they went down. So I don't know if it's consistency or effectiveness is what we're really looking for.
You know, and another thing with Kansas City Public Schools, they never seem to cultivate anybody from within to step up into the job the way they do in Kansas City, Kansas, for instance. Is that they're always looking from outside, and you're always getting something of an unknown quality.
Well, we in the media can be guilty of picking at problems, but far too seldom showcasing solutions. This year we have a resolution to do better. When it comes to health, Wyandotte County is ranked as one of the sickest places in the region. It's been ranked dead last among counties in Kansas for factors influencing health. Do we just shrug our shoulders and say, too bad? This week we partner with the Heartland Health Monitor to take you to the unhealthiest neighborhood in the unhealthiest county, where citizens are now fighting back to improve their health.
Well, Argentina, in my opinion, is, you might say, God's country.
Dave Vega and his wife Millie are part of the decades-old Mexican community in the Argentine neighborhood of Wyandotte County, Kansas. Back in the 20s, a surge of young immigrants came from towns in the Mexican state of Michoacan to work in the Kansas City rail yards, and many, like Dave's father, quickly started families.
he didn't understand English or didn't want to create any waves. All he was glad to have a job and to be in love and to have a place to live and eat and get his groceries, better living conditions than he would have in Mexico.
But Argentine wasn't always the most welcoming place for these families. After he returned from World War II, Dave Vega owned a gas station, and when he tried to sponsor a Little League baseball team, he found that discriminatory rules even kept children from playing sports.
So I attended some of the Kansas 3-2 League meetings, and they would turn me down. I couldn't enroll my team.
Today, the nearly century-old Hispanic community in Argentine is facing a challenge. About 40% of Wyandotte County residents are physically inactive, and Monica Mendez of the Latino Health for All Coalition says many of the county's neighborhoods, and Argentine in particular, are overdue for a change.
It is important because it's gonna help us to have a better health, a better healthy living lifestyles, mostly to reduce risk of any chronic disease, illness, any diabetes, any heart disease, any obesity in our community.
Like with Dave Vega's baseball team, lack of access is still a major barrier to fitness. But instead of discrimination, today's limitations have more to do with economics. After decades of economic decline, Argentine has few places to exercise or programs to support it. Funding for city parks all but disappeared in the 90s, and many residents themselves also struggled just to make ends meet.
I think that's the main focus of all of the families, just have food, have a place to live, and to pay all of the bills. They haven't made as a priority that we need as part of our lives to also be active, physically active.
About a year ago, Argentine civic and health leaders decided to try addressing the problem by offering classes combining Zumba and nutrition lessons at the community center. To get the community on board, class instructor Diva Esparza took the challenge to get active directly to neighbors.
And we went to churches and we went to schools, went to the streets to recruit people. we basically, used every means possible to let the community know that we had this program available for everybody.
The Argentine class ended up with 120 members and a waiting list as long as the class roster. Among the members is Cristina Moreno, who brings her 9-year-old daughter Elena with her to class.
The first time I did Zumba, it's an hour-long class. I didn't know if I was going to make it through the first time, and it just gets easier from there. Now, once kind of like that last song's over with and we start with our cool down, some days when I have the energy, I'm like, oh, I want to do more.
Diva Esparza says that beyond teaching, a major part of her work is supporting her class members to make a long-term commitment to a new lifestyle.
We are honest with everybody and we tell them, look, you're not gonna lose 20 pounds in 1 month. We're not selling that. Just like, a lot of products on the TV. That's just not realistic if you wanna lose weight in a healthy way. But it's a process.
Since it started, the classes have expanded with the help of additional funding, and while that's good news for Argentine, there's still a critical lack of fitness options in many neighboring communities in Wyandotte County.
If I didn't have Argentine Community Center, I probably would not be working out or trying to live a healthier lifestyle. Other than this, really, that's really all I do is just Zumba here, and if it wasn't for, like I said, this place, I wouldn't be trying to live healthier.
Up next on Kansas City Week in Review, this is supposed to be the doomsday week if you live in Missouri, the week where your Missouri driver's license would no longer be accepted as a method of ID at military bases, federal installations, and even when trying to catch a plane. That's because Missouri is one of just 5 states out of compliance with federal ID laws aimed at boosting security and combating terrorism. Fort Bragg and Fort Leonard Wood locally both announced this week that they are no longer allowing visitors with Missouri driver's licenses from going on base. What about the airlines?
Yeah, that's not going to take effect until 2018. They're still trying to work it out, Nick, and there are some legislative fixes that are now under discussion in Jefferson City to try to put Missouri into compliance. Although there's resistance to that, you know, the reason that Missouri is in trouble is because there was a sort of a weird conservative liberal coalition of people concerned about invasion of privacy and sort of an overarching federal government. But I think they'll try and work it out. For now, airplane flyers should relax. Their licenses will still work.
And that is our Week in Review. Our thanks to our news reviewers from the editorial pages of The Star, Barbara Shelley, and from The Call, Eric Wesson. Steve Ockrott writes for The Pitch, and Dave Helling, columnist and reporter for your Kansas City Star, is headed to Iowa on Sunday. Yes. It all seems so far away, but you're not covering the caucuses. You're not going to stay there until February 1st, are you?
Oh, but I am.
Oh, you are for 2 weeks?
We're trying to figure out Donald Trump, and we're going to spend a couple of weeks doing it.
But it's going to be March 5th that Kansas votes. March 15th is the Missouri presidential primaries. Yeah. There's going to be more than 20 states before Kansas, 30 states before Missouri. Will anybody care by then?
Yes, I hope so. Otherwise, I'm out of work.
Okay.
So they will care, yes. It's a fascinating race. We'll see what's going on up and up.
But will we see those candidates, though, come to Kansas and Missouri, Barbara?
Well, for Missouri's primary, there's several states that have a primary on that day, including Florida. So I'm not sure how many candidates we'll see running around here.
Plus, Jeff Rowe runs Ted Cruz's campaign. Jeff Rowe we know about in the Kansas City area. Likely that he has Missouri in the Cruz camp.
I'm Nick Haynes from all of us at KCPT. Thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.